Caribbean, joined by water, connected by culture, and linked by a common heritage.
Welcome back, viewers. Welcome back. We are having a very interesting discussion on justice in the Caribbean, 50 years of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. When we went to our break, we were looking at the state of the physical plants in the various different jurisdictions. And right now, I want to go straight to Renee to tell us about the situation in St. Vincent. What do you currently have, Renee, and what do you need?
Well, at the moment, this is one of the pressing issues for us. There are over 88 lawyers in private practice, 32 in the public service. So that's over 100 lawyers.
Wow.
And the space that we have cannot accommodate this, not even through storage of our files and space for judges' chambers, because we were involved in a matter the other day with 14 counsel. And you can't hold in the judges' chambers, and you have to wait to see if a room would be available in another part of another building separately. It's one of the issues I have raised continuously with the government in relation to this project for the Halls of Justice, having seen the rather palatial quarters in Antigua, that we would need something like this in St. Vincent. And you also have to bear in mind that our magistrate courts as well is getting crowded. Our family court is in rented quarters. The DPP just recently moved into another rented building separately. So we need to have a proper court building. We have outgrown the palais de justice that was inherited, and we now need a proper building because we have 3 judges that and we need to be able to accommodate the judges and have proper accommodation to the lawyers, rooms for mediation, law library, which is a very, very essential tool of a lawyer and a court to have law library, which is something that we have been advocating quite strong to work with the government. There was a project, as requested, for the Halls of Justice, and I think it was one on with the Canadian government. And for some reason in the past, there were issues that remain unresolved. The project just came to an end. So we are looking forward to raise this with the government. The government has indicated it is on their program. And I would really wish that by 2020 we can see this project in route. And you have to bear in mind that our magistrate court, the Grenadine Island, and we are very fortunate having good headquarters, good magisterial accommodation in Canawan. The government built a recent government building there with revenue office and customs and so on. Very good.
I want to go to Anne. Anne, how did you come to have these palatial accommodation in Antigua?
Well, you see, when you say palatial accommodation, you immediately put me at a disadvantage. And all the laundry list of things I want to complain about, I now start to look a little bit petty. We were very fortunate and were in fact moved into the new accommodation in, I think, 2003. Prior to that, we were in the middle of St. John's. The High Court was in the middle of St. John's with 2 courtrooms. And at that time, we had 2 judges. We now have 4. We have 2 permanent judges in the civil side and 2 permanent judges on the criminal side. Plus, we have a master. Now, we have outgrown the building. It is very comfortable. It has a lot of modern amenities, but we have outgrown it because we are now moving towards having a family division. And this now means that another building, which is owned by the government, which is not very far from the High Court quarters, is going to have to be retrofitted to accommodate the family court. The Magistrates Court continues to be in St. John's, in the city of St. John, in the center of the city of St. John's. Their accommodation, I really don't practice in the Magistrates Court, so I really can't speak to how comfortable it is. But it certainly is an improvement from when I used to practice and the accommodation that there was before. But when you think of a modern court, you think in terms of meeting rooms for parties and attorneys. You think in terms of mediation rooms. And it is for that reason that I say that we have outgrown the space that we currently occupy. But it cannot be gainsaid from everything that I've heard and I can recall. And I haven't been into the court in St. Vincent since the 80s. Let's just put it that way. But it cannot be gainsaid that we are in a far better position in terms of court accommodation than most of the other jurisdictions in the Eastern Caribbean. But so that even while we are celebrating, I think we have to remember that nothing stays the same, and we must constantly be working towards improving the court and its services, and the accommodation is basic.
But what I see, Anne, is that based on what you are saying, Anne, and based on what Renee has said, it seems that the situation, Ruggles, is bad. Because Anne does not think her situation is as palatial as it looks from the outside. And Renee is certainly put forward that she has been advocating for better accommodation. And here in Grenada, it was a big struggle to get to where it is now. So what's the figure? Yes. What's the dollar value on the halls of justice?
It's into the millions.
Well, it has to be. How many? Yes. How many millions?
Yes. For the different, for the different jurisdictions, of course, because it depends on area and the work that needs to be done.
Let me just advise the viewers that they are now able to participate in the conversation if they so desire. If you are in Grenada, you can call toll free from a landline at 800-4922. If you are outside of Grenada, you'll call 1-473-232-4922. Yes, Ruggles.
Yes. Right. So it involves a significant investment, and comparatively speaking, because I'm familiar with both Antigua, the courts in Antigua and St. Vincent, and actually when you go to St. Vincent, then you learn not to complain about Grenada. In other words, when you if you make a comparison and you say, well, I thought Grenada was
the Prime Minister
small.
of St. Vincent a lawyer?
Yes. Well, I suppose with the airport project now completed, that I'm sure the courts would get some attention.
But that means there's no more money left now to
well, money. I'm sure money will be.
Renee, is there any money left over, Renee?
The airport has had its own business and the way that monies were raised for that specifically. And I'm quite sure that the government, the creativity of the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines cannot be underestimated, so that I feel that something will be done before 2020. I just have that feeling. And especially with the advances that are being made now in the administration of justice, with e-filing coming on the stream and video, taking information by video, we need the quarters. We have to see that justice is done. And
precisely,
the
because
rule of law is a pillar of democracy.
Justice delayed is justice denied.
This is the reason why I must strongly advocate for a mechanism to be established by the Eastern Caribbean, well, not by the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, but by the heads of government and the governments of the region, the participating governments, for there to be a mechanism for funding our courts. We cannot continue to operate on the basis of a priority list established by the various governments in their various jurisdictions. It's just not working. It's not a practical way to move forward. For example, the court in the family court in Antigua, that pilot project, has been pending for some time. There is no work. Work has not started on the building. I have passed there where it is located, and work has not started, yet the pilot project is supposed to be afoot. it is, so in other words, the priority that is being put on it in terms of the construction of the building is what will impact on whether or not the court comes into existence.
But,
something has to be wrong with that.
But Anne, Rennie, and Ruggles, isn't this just pointing to the issue of how dependent the court is on the various parliaments of the country, ultimately on our prime ministers who head our various governments? Isn't it just pointing to this fact? Isn't that the real problem here, that the courts are dependent on a political structure in which the courts may not be a priority until someone in the system needs to use it?
Right. Well, certainly.
Absolutely. I entirely agree with that statement. And what I would say more than that is that when you consider that all of us have constitutions that speak to three arms of government: the parliament, the executive, and the judiciary. The judiciary has always been the stepchild of the Constitution, in my view, because it has never sat at an equal footing with the other two arms of government. And and that is one of the things that hampers the development of the court, because it has to depend on the executive in order to move forward with all the different things. I mean, we have spoken for many years of the millions of dollars that are owed by the various governments according to the system of funding that are owed by the governments to the court. How can the court be expected to provide all the services that it is intended to provide and wants to provide if it is hamstrung in that way? So you have hit the nail on the head, and we have to call a spade a spade.
So couldn't this non-payment by the governments be cited as contempt of court somewhere in the law book?
That would be
cited as that, but will it make a difference?
You see,
Will
because
it make a difference?
maybe at least if it is filed, and things like this would get a lot of media coverage, and there'd be a lot of noise.
Precisely. And you see, that's where everything depends on advocacy and the strength of advocacy. It's a continuing work in progress, like the halls of justice. You can't, like bar associations can't afford to take it off the agenda. You need to continue to lobby over and over and over again, using different fora and different techniques in order to ensure that you have it not just on the agenda, but it moves from an idea to something that is actually implemented. And you need it. Now, the point is, everything now is technology. And that's one of the areas that the court, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, has moved because of its structure, its uniqueness. It serves these 9 courts. And the idea is to depend more and more on technology. So, for example, it will limit travel. And gave the example of a matter in Antigua. I did a matter in the BVI, for example, at least part of it, where it was dealt with by video link in the court here. You stayed in the court here and you dealt with it
hold that thought, Ruggles. We have a caller on the line. We have a caller from St. Vincent. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
That question about the absolute dependence on the court, the Supreme Court, by the government, to me, it's all of those things that continue to make the acceptance of the CCG an issue. Why would the CCG have gone and created its own finance structure so that they could fund themselves? Because I'm sure they recognized that there was a problem. So how is it we can't find a similar kind of structure to fund especially the magistracy in the regular court system? That's my question.
And Anne, do you want to respond to that?
I could not agree with that call at all. I think we need to focus our attention. I have heard my former Attorney General and my present Attorney General speak about this establishment of a trust fund for over 10 years. and I have seen no move afoot. Stepchild.
Yeah, but it seems like everything in the court is spoken about in decades.
Well,
It's a 10-year block of discussion.
no. What?
No, seriously, I think we really need to focus in on this court funding because, as Ruggles indicated, just last week we did case management for Court of Appeal by video link. But what I'm saying in relation to the overall funding package, I think it needs to get on the agenda of the heads of government, of the OECS authority. It needs to become an agenda item there. High up on the agenda, the funding of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, and the building of suitable court facilities for the individual court, the courts in the region, in our sub-region, because we have outgrown existing buildings. We are renting too many buildings, and we need to have the proper quarters. We have postponed it, put other things in priority, but now is the time for the court to get its own priority on that list.
Before we hold that thought, we have a caller on the line from Grenada. We give priority to our callers. Go ahead, please, caller.
Yes, Beverly, good night.
Good night.
You hear me clearly?
Absolutely clear as a bell.
You know, Beverly, every time I think about the CCJ, I am so happy and proud that Grenadians voted against that CCJ. An individual, was chastised by a certain person. The guy know who he is, telling me all kind of about mental slavery and all kind of things. When I look at the rulings and what happened on the case in Dominica, well, Grenadians, I'm so proud of you all. It is shameful and shocking because it appears to me that all the other lawyers also sort of agree that judgment wasn't, it ain't ready yet. And on top of that, allegations of political interference, which I'm not able to verify. But as I say, I am so happy, and I will continue to advocate against the CCJ. I don't have confidence in these people, and in particular, how the whole story played out. I know you know me, all kind of thing. But I want to say also to your guests, in relation to something what this Saunders guy, Justice Saunders, was talking about the other day when he was at the Sir Archibald Ned, it is a shame and shocking that judgments, I mean, come on, man. People take years to get judgments. And I know the situation with the overloaded courts, etc. But I really, really find that the judges, and people say you can't criticize judges and you can't criticize Governor General and all these things. I don't think that is correct. We are paying these people, and I find it's high time that these judges and them deliver their judgments on time and don't take all this amount of years. Because as we know, justice delayed is justice denied. And I think the judges need to come speed up those judgments and deliver it timely. And also with the Justice Pereira, I'm very proud as a woman because right now I'm advocating for a woman prime minister for these men and them just messing up the country. And some time ago she talked about the unethical, she alleges, I think it was 2 years ago, about the unethical behavior of those lawyers, etc. I want to ask your guests there and all the other lawyers that listen, because Ruggles is the president of the OECS bar, however you call it. What has he done that people will have confidence in these judges, not the lawyers? In particular, I heard one of the lawyers saying the other day that lawyers are asking clients to plead guilty, and when you go to court, you know what I mean, it's a horse of a different color. These people get off. And I want to ask him as president of the Bar Association, what has he done since 2015 when the judge talked about all this unethical behavior, and in light of one of their own colleagues revealing about the people being asked to plead like that? And I think the bottom line is we have to study what goes on in our local courts first, speed up things. Look at the state of the registry. You are a member of the Bar Association of whatever it is. What have you done to make life and conditions easier for the workers and the people of the registry?
Okay,
So
caller,
I'm
I
also-
think we get the point. Thank you very much. A lot from that caller there.
Well,
on the plate.
certainly, and the first point I would make, not everything you read or you hear somebody say, an individual, we all live in a democracy, and everyone has the right to criticize. There's talk about the Dominica judgment. Many hail that Dominica judgment as a sound judgment. The judgment is online for everyone to see. The litigant happened to criticize it. That does not mean that it's not a
You
good
see,
judgment.
Robert,
It's available
let me interrupt you a little
online,
bit here.
the whole judgment.
It's one thing
Yeah.
for the judgment to be online, but if someone goes and read that judgment who doesn't understand the law, the judgment is just a matter of whether they agree with it or not, because they do not have that legal grounding to make the comparisons and to figure out whether
Well,
it's grounded in law or not.
Right, but you see, Beverly, somebody who criticizes comes out and criticizes a judgment, a litigant. What I'm saying is that the judgment is an 18-page judgment. It's online, plus there is an executive summary of the judgment online. One cannot criticize the CCJ as an institution because somebody just happened to criticize it, and people like the criticisms of our institutions and just pick it up and run with it.
That is opening a whole different topic. And
Precisely.
we're not going to talk about the CCJ tonight.
Well, precisely.
We want to talk about the ECSC tonight.
Right, but I just make that point because it impacts on many of the other points. The issue of of lawyers and what have we done, and certainly we can proudly say, and I've been associated with the OECS Bar Association and as president of the Grenada Bar Association, and it's the bar associations that have advocated for legal profession acts in each and every single jurisdiction
How many have
of the
implemented?
Eastern Caribbean. Now we are just about too short of implementation of legal profession acts, but that is on the agenda
Which
of each. It's Dominica and St. Vincent. Those are the only two countries, and we have advocated not just for
We're
legal
talking about
profession acts.
implementation, you know. That's the question
But
I'm
yeah, we
asking.
have-
How many countries have actually implemented
Well,
these acts?
all separate apart from two countries, and even the legal council, the general legal council, we have advocated and ensured that the general legal council is up and running. That's part of the agenda item.
Hold that
of
thought.
the
We have a
regional bar
caller-
associations,
We have
huh?
a caller online from Dominica. Good evening, welcome caller. Please go ahead.
Yes, good evening. My point to this gentleman there tonight is we are the common people, we are not lawyers, and we are looked at ignorant to a lot of what is being said or judgment that is passed. And we have seen over and over again in the Caribbean, based on what happened. We have a situation in Antigua. We have the situation or the situations way back that they have touched upon, and we see the biasness to the governing party. And this is some of the things we have to see. Stop too much playing around and failing to stand up to what they have to do. And you can see it, you don't need to be a lawyer or a judge to see that a judgment has some inaccuracies in it. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling. And Ruggles, I have to stick this in. He says, the common people, this is how we see it. So my perception becomes my reality. And if that is how the man in the street, the common man, sees it, then for him, there is something wrong with the system. But we want to come back on this issue. We're going to take a short break, and that point you held, Ruggles. When we come back, we'll continue with it. Viewers, stay with us. We'll be right back looking at 50 years of the ECSC and justice in the Caribbean.